So today we're going to start a conversation about the documenting processes using the process tools. So just a quick reminder of how you get to the process tools page where you start the documentation. One way is you can go here through the 4 functions list. So you look for the process that you want to start working on, select it, and then you're taken right to the process tools page. This is where the documentation for the process is created. Another way to get there is through your organization chart, through a job description. So once you've gone through the process of building the job descriptions, which we spoke about last training session, you can then access the processes that you've linked to those job descriptions through the job description itself. So here I am on a job description, and if I select that process that I want to work on or document, then it takes me right to the process. You can also see from this breadcrumb trail right here that where the process is on the 4 functions list. So we can see that it's in the 4 functions, in the getting the business function, in the advertising sub-function. And this trail also is an easy way to get back and forth from the 4 functions list to the process. So I can hit the back button 5 times and get back to that process on the 4 functions list, or I can just click here and it takes me right back to the 4 functions list where the process lives. Okay, so this is called the process tools page. And this is where all the documentation is created for the process. So first thing I want to show you is how you edit the details of the process. So right here in this blue box, you see what we call the details of the process. It's basically the process title and the objective, the purpose of the process. And then there's also these 2 tools which allows you to mark the process as complete, which turns it black, the title black on the 4 functions list. So this one's been marked as complete. And I'll uncheck it here just so you can see what it looks like and go back. And now you'll see it's blue. So it's blue because it's got some tools in it, so I've been working on it. And when I'm finished with it, so it's been approved and ready to go, flip this flag, and then it turns the process title black. This button will put the process in what we call the public folder. So over here on the home screen, there's this folder here called Public Processes. So these are processes that are company-wide information. So they're tools and content that everyone in the company needs to have access to and use. They wouldn't be on any 1 or 2 positions on the org chart or anyone's job descriptions. If they're public, that means that everybody needs to use them and know how to use them. It's company-wide information. So you would then put it in this folder called Public Processes. What's public tends to be HR things that are company-wide documents, information that all employees need to have. Sometimes client satisfaction or customer service things if the entire company deals with customer service issues or deals with clients or customers. Anything around education, that's company-wide, so classes and workshops and any kind of training that you give to the entire company. And then if you have content for that training that they want to can reference later, then you can put it in a process in the public folder. Systems innovation, that's a good one because everyone needs to know how to, or should at least know how to contribute or comment on when a process could be better. Things around health and safety. So anything, again, that you deem company-wide information, you can put it in the public folder, and you do that by just filling in this box. If you've thought of the public, making a process public in a different way, so not how I've defined it, and you've put processes in the public folder that are really the accountability of one department or one person, they're not company-wide, I'd suggest you take them out. And hold that folder exclusively for things that are public. All the other processes can be accessible through job descriptions on the org chart, and that's really the best way to do it when it's the accountability of 1 or 2 or more people. So over here to the left on the Process Tools page, you have all access to all of these different templates to document with. The first template right here at the top is called a work plan. And the work plans are at the top of the list because this is the tool that's used the most. In the end, every process should have a work plan. The work plan is the main tool that you use to document the content, document the how-tos of the process, explain the step-by-step set of instructions for how that process is run. It becomes the training. It becomes the reference for how to do that work, basically. The processes may need checklist, a script, uploaded file, form, these other tools, and they may not. It just depends on what the needs of the process are. But in the end, every process should have a work plan because that's like the main tool or template that you use to document with. So to build a work plan, you click the work plan title, and then you put in the name of your work plan. Choose a title. So resist the urge to make the work plan like a sentence or a phrase. Think just like you did on the 4 functions list, what is the title of this? Usually 1, 2, maybe 3 words at the most. Get into the habit of capitalizing too. The caps aren't working, why? Like this, every word in the title. And if you don't want to capitalize every word, then be consistent with it. So choose kind of a protocol that makes sense, that you like, and then make sure that everyone who's working in TouchStone does it the same way. So either capitalize all the words or capitalize none of them. Underneath the work plan title, there's a space for the objective. So again, this is the purpose. This is where you can put in a sentence or a phrase or multiple sentences if you like. So the same idea as the process title and objective, you want to define what's in this work plan. Now, if a process only has one work plan in it, so here I've got 2 work plans, and I'll explain to you a little bit more about why I do. But if your process only has one, like there's only one workflow, only one set of tasks for what happens in that process, then it's fine if the work plan title is the same as the process title, and the objective is the same for that matter. So don't struggle to try to come up with a different work plan title if there's only going to be one, and really it's just referral development, and there's a clear set of tasks for that, and that's it. So then you hit Create Work Plan. This message, if you ever see this, it's letting you know that you've got a duplicate. So I'm about to create a work plan title here, and I've already got another work plan somewhere in the system named this. So you can click here, and it'll take you to that work plan and show you what it is. So you can decide if it really is a duplicate or if you want to change the title. I'm just going to put a 1 next to this so it lets me create it. So now this work plan is created, and it's right here at the bottom of the list. So sometimes processes will have more than one work plan. So in this example, this is the referral development process. And if you ever want to get back to the details of the process, you can see the process title, you can click here, Edit Process Details, and it'll take you back. Or you can always click here at the end of this trail, and it'll take you back. So this takes us back to the title page. We're not on the work plan anymore. We're looking at the details of the process. So if the process has got more than one workflow or more than one thing that happens within it with different sets of tasks, yet still related to the subject of this process, then that's a time when you'll have multiple work plans within a process. In a way, the work plans are kind of like the sub-areas of the process. So if there are multiple things that happen, then you build multiple work plans for that. So in this example, we've got a work plan here for how to generate referrals from clients. And then there's another one here on how to generate referrals from strategic alliances. So these 2 actions or results are all about generating referrals. So they're in the referral process. But there are different tasks to do for each type of referral. Combine like results and build multiple work plans when it makes sense. And the reason for that is if you don't do it that way, then your for functions list is going to be way longer than it needs to be. So if I have a process titled this, referral development for clients, and then I have another process, referral development for strategic alliances, now I've just doubled the processes on my for functions list. And again, technically there's nothing necessarily wrong with that except for the fact that it just creates more processes to deal with on the for functions list, and it gets more confusing. It's better to combine them so that when I go to the referral process, I see everything related to referrals right inside of that. Here's another example. So I'm going to go to running the business here. Where's an example? How about this one? Here's accounts payable. So within accounts payable, I've got all these work plans. How to create invoices, how to create special invoices, how to pay bills with credit cards or ACH payments, how to pay bills with checks, how to do bank deposits. So everything related to accounts payable is inside of this one process. Now, you may choose that you want to have two accounts payable processes, maybe one called invoicing with everything related to creating invoices within it, and then the other for making payments, which is, all of these two, and then bank deposits. You may have a process for depositing, how to make deposits at the bank. So again, it's just a different way of doing it. Here are some factors to think about. One, you can consider who does this work, and sometimes that's determined by the size of your company. So if you have 3 accounts payable people and one's only in charge of invoices, the other exclusively is in charge of deposits and cutting checks, then you may want to break these work plans apart and have 2 processes. Then the person who's doing those actions just around invoicing would be able to access that process, and they wouldn't see these other things within it. If you have one position doing all of this work, that might be a reason to do it like I've done it here, because everything that they need related to payables is here. If any of the work plans are confidential, and let's say operations has to do something related to invoicing, but then the finance department does something related to it as well, and for whatever reason you don't want the operations department to know how you cut checks, then that would clearly be a reason that you'd want to break these work plans apart and make it 2 separate processes. So a bit of it is just kind of how you like to see it, and we make it customizable by you so that you can make those decisions on your own. But you do want to keep in mind the idea that a process itself, a whole process, is linked to a job description. So this whole accounts payable process and everything within it gets linked to a position on the org chart. And anybody who does any amount of this work, even if it's not all of it, is going to need to have access to this accounts payable process if they're going to be able to access and view the work plans within it. So if for whatever reason you don't want 2 different positions seeing all of this, then that would be a reason to break it apart. Someone's asking, can a work plan be shared with 2 roles? So that's no, it can't. The process itself is linked to the job description. So that means whoever has access to this position on the org chart that has accounts payable listed on it is going to be able to see all these work plans. Sometimes if it's useful for one position to see what the other is doing. So let's say this is accounts payable process and the invoices are created over in operations, yet the finance department processes them and receives the payment. If for whatever reason it's useful for both of those positions to see what each other is doing, then you can put the title of who does which work plan right in the title of the work plan itself, and then link this whole process to both. And then that way they'll know, each position knows what they're supposed to do, but they can also see what the other position's doing. And then again, if the opposite of that is true, and if you don't want them to see it, then break the processes apart. Someone's asking, what about a process like answering the phone? So answering the phone is, here's here's another one. So here's one. I think I've got one on communications right here. So here's communications. And here we've got everything related to communications, how to answer the phone, how to deal with your email, what to do with faxes, how to deal with the mail. This could be a good public process. So here I've got it in the public folder. And it would be that if everybody answers the phone and has to email and deal with faxes and mail, that might be, a good process for everyone to be able to have access to. In addition to that, I might also put it on the receptionist's job description if you have a receptionist, just so she knows, or he, that this process of communications is their main accountability, yet other people still need to know how to do it. So I think the answer to your question is if you've got something that's public, like how to answer the phone, that's probably a good public process. Okay, so let's go back over to this process. And I know someone else has another question. I'll get to that in a second. So let's go back here and back to this referral process. So define your work plans. Before you would start the process itself, think about how you're going to structure the process. What work plans would be necessary? And then add those work plans just by clicking the title and putting in the name. So to build a work plan, you start by adding tasks. So it clearly is easy to add tasks. You just see the Add Task button, and then I click on the task field, and then this becomes task 1. And then I save it, and then I go Add Task again, and then this is task 2. And then I save it. So this work plan is forcing you into kind of the step-by-step nature of good documentation. So you want to think, what is the first step? What is the second? What is the third? What are the clear, specific tasks or to-do items that make up this work plan? When you're thinking about the documentation, try to consider clear delineated steps or tasks. Think about the first step or action, the second or the third. Try to build it in an outline. So we'll go back to this example here for a second. So I've got this task, categorize existing list of potential prospects for generating referral leads. And then there are sub-areas to this. So that's kind of like the main step that happens, and then I've got more details that I need to say about that task. So I'm building them into bullet points. So rather than writing a paragraph on how you categorize the existing list and then you choose the past clients and then, so I'm telling a story. Rather than doing that, try to think of the clear outline of the steps that you have to follow. In simple work plans, this will be easy because you can see the steps clearly in your mind. When you get into more complicated processes that have kind of numerous aspects to them, you're going to want to think through the clear steps and decide how to kind of lay those out. So default to doing bullet points and sub-bullets. Anytime you've got, a sentence and you've got comma, comma, then this, comma, rethink that and decide if you can make a list out of it. And the reason is when somebody's learning something new, it's easier to see it. It's easier for your eye to follow the specific steps. If I've got paragraphs of information that someone needs to read through, that's harder for me to memorize and learn. So think of your tasks in clear, specific steps in kind of sequential order. Generally, a task will start with some kind of an action word: categorize, schedule, prepare. So think about starting the sentences with an action word that describes, what they're doing. If there's anything more to say about it, then, fill it in bullet point details. If you think in pictures, which some people do, you might see your processes like a flow, like a workflow. try to take that picture in your mind and build it into an outline. So all flowcharts are visual steps, really. So we purposely don't have flowcharting inside of TouchStone. We don't have a tool available for that. And the reason is it's harder to train someone in a flow, and your flows end up flowing to different things. So you have these massive flowcharts, and then you've got lines coming off of other boxes down to other flowcharts, and then at the end, you know, they're connecting in different ways to different departments. It just gets to be kind of a mess to look at visually and to learn from. So we've decided to build TouchStone in more of an outline because that's better for learning purposes. So again, if you think in kind of flows, then turn your flow chart in your mind on end and think of the tasks as being the boxes on the flow chart. In fact, if we go back here to the 4 functions, if you're thinking in a flow chart, this might be a box on your flow chart, sales, or advertising to sales, and on. Then within this box, you've got all of these boxes. And then within all of these boxes, you've got all of these boxes. So it's the same thing, it's just done in more of an outline. Okay, so I'm going to open up this task once again. This toolbar is very similar to Microsoft Word. All these functions that you see here mean the same thing here as they do in Word. If you have documentation in Word or things that you're cutting and pasting from Word or Excel or any other tool, you can use this paste with text icon, or what I do is I just right-click here, and you can, right here, paste with text, or you can do Control-Shift-V. So if I'm cutting and pasting from Word and I use this, then it's going to take all the Word formatting, the font size, all of that, and paste it into the task in the same way it is in Word. So what will happen is you'll have different fonts and font sizes within your tasks. So paste it as text, and then everything will look the same. You won't have any funky characters. It'll all be 10-point Arial, which is what this text is when I type it directly in. Inside of every task, in fact, every tool, you have the ability to create what we call hyperlinks, and that's what this tool's for. I'm going to cancel this for a second and go back here. The hyperlinks are these little blue links that are throughout, and you'll notice them in the library processes. The hyperlinks show the relationships between the tools inside of TouchStone, really, in the processes. So when we were talking about the flowchart idea, well, in flowcharts, you get to the end of the flowchart, and really what's happening is processes start to connect with each other. So at the end here, after I've done everything related to referrals, I need to enter that referral lead into the CRM. Well, this is a whole other process. So if we're looking at the referral process, and this was a flow chart, right here I'd have a line going from here, somehow going back to how to enter leads into the CRM. So TouchStone shows these relationships through the hyperlink. It's kind of like an invisible flow chart that's linking things, but you don't see it that way. You see it more clearly where you just select and it goes right to it. So here, rather than repeating how to enter leads into the CRM, I have a link right to that process. So I've got a whole other process inside of running the business in the IT sub-function called CRM How-Tos. And inside of this, I'm putting all these little how-tos for your CRM or any other software you use. And people may need to enter leads into the CRM in 20 different processes. I don't know, but in numerous processes. So what you don't want to do is repeat the steps of how to do that inside of every single process. It's unnecessary. So have a separate process and then create a link right to it. The hyperlinks will also show how the other tools inside of this process are used. So here, send the intro letter. Well, this letter is an uploaded file right here. Or fill out the referral contact sheet. Well, this form is a form right inside of here. So anytime you have other tools and you can create a link to them from the task where they're used, then do it. You can also create links to other things that live on the internet. So if you've got another website or another web page or another web tool for that matter that someone needs to access or link to, then you can create a link to that website or web page. You can create external links, they're called, to other web tools or to Google Docs. The only thing is when the user who selects the link has to be logged into that other software or web tool in order for the link to go through. Otherwise, it stops them at the login screen. So to make a hyperlink, you highlight the text that you want to become the link word, and then you click on the chain here. And then I hit the drop down, and I'm going to see all these different link types. This first type is called an external link. So this would be something else that lives on the internet. So I put in the entire URL of that page that I want to link to, and then I hit insert. All the other link types are things that are inside of TouchStone. So if I want to link from this task to another process to show where I can get information in order to complete that process, or show where something ends and something else begins, I choose process. And then if I hit the drop down here, I see all the processes inside of my system in alphabetical order. Or you can link to a specific work plan, one work plan to another. So you choose work plans, hit the drop down, and look for it. So that's how you make a hyperlink. If you have a hyperlink and you've linked it to one thing and then you decide you want to link it to something else, you have to break the link. That's what this unbreak is for. So once you have a hyperlink, make sure you unlink it and then relink it. These tasks also have an image uploader, which is this tree icon here at the end. So anytime you can take a picture of how something's supposed to look, it's fantastic, because you can show a visual and then you don't have to do so much explaining in your text. You can just say, this is how it's supposed to look, and you show a picture. So use the images feature whenever you can, whenever it makes sense for the process. You can literally take a picture on your camera and then save that as a JPEG and then upload it. Or you can do screenshot captures. There's a great tool that I use called Jing. It's like right above my screen right here all the time. And if you hit capture, then you can kind of angle your picture that you want, and you choose snap, and it takes the picture. And then I can draw arrows or put little lines in. Here's a color tool where I can mark the colors, or I can highlight something, or here's this arrow tool. I can point to it and say, here it is. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And then I save it, and I always just dump these on my desktop, and I don't change the name, and I hit save. And then you go to the image uploader, and then I'm going to find that capture. And it's always, if you save it to your desktop with the same file name, it's always in the same place. You click Add. And then if you do a second screen capture, then you just override the last one and override the last one. So you're not saving all these images all over your desktop. You're just overriding each one, and it's pretty quick. Then you go Insert, and then TouchStone pops in the image. I can resize the image just by pulling it in and pulling it out right here before it's saved. When I save it, then the image will pop into the task. You'll notice I've got text up here, so you can put text on the top or the bottom of the image inside of TouchStone. So you don't need to write things on the image itself and save that as part of the image. You can still do some explaining. This free Jing tool, so it's J-I-N-G. People are texting me what it is, J-I-N-G. It's the free version of Snagit, which is a more robust kind of screen capture tool. With this, you can also do screen capture videos. So you go capture video, and there's 1, 2, 3. It's giving you a countdown. And then as I'm speaking into my computer and I'm clicking around to different things, it's capturing this whole video, everything I'm doing. So once you've got your work plans set, you can literally follow the work plan and say, click here, then do this, then do that. And in this free version, you get 5 minutes, which is a nice length for a training video. And then when you're done, you just pause it, and then you can upload it right to TouchStone down here in the video tool. So you can take this file and upload it right here. And then you've got, a nice little training video for the process. And this is the video. If I hit play, it would just go. Training videos are awesome, and we'll talk more about those when we get to the video section. But they're supplemental documentation. They're supplemental training. Usually a video itself is not enough to, and isn't efficient enough to fully train an employee. Because if I have an outlined step-by-step in a work plan, I can follow it, I can reference it, I can go back to a task that's 3 tasks in and find out exactly how to do that step. If I just have a video, you can see how hard that would be. I'd have to watch the video over and over, pause it, okay, that's what she said, and then start it, and it's not enough. It's not enough for how-tos. All the tasks drag and drop here, so I can pull them up and pull them down and readjust the order. You can also do that with the work plans, the other tools. So I can pull this up and pull this down and kind of adjust the order of my work plans, put them in workflow order, if that makes sense. Underneath the task section, there's this section called expectations. So expectations are for just general things that need to be known about the process. So let's go back to this example, not this one, this one. So down here, I think I have some expectations, yeah. So things around timing generally are good expectations. So when it's supposed to be done, how often, anything that's not a part of the tasks but is still important. So almost every work plan has got specific tasks, but then there are extra things that might need to be said about it. So really kind of think about it. These are the expectations are generally the kinds of things that make up the difference between somebody just doing something and somebody doing it really well. The difference between you doing it yourself and the high quality in which you would do it, and then how someone else might do it if you just explain the steps to them. So think if there's anything extra about it, an extra touch you put on it. Sometimes it's even an explanation of why a certain task is really important or why the work plan itself is important. A lot of times employees miss things because they don't understand the big picture of it. Like they don't understand why it's important. So in their mind, they're just trying to be as fast as possible getting it done. And they don't understand why filling out the checklist or doing something extra that needs to be done is important. So if something has to be missed, they're going to miss that. So build some expectation, some standards around the process if it's possible. So use the expectations section for things like that. Use it for qualities, anything that's subjective in any way. Timing, again, is also a good place for the expectations. So something in general about the work plan. Sometimes there are work plans where all they are is a set of expectations. So it's like there's not really a step-by-step to it. So there was one that I saw the other day in an account. I thought it was really good. I think it was about workplace safety, I think. Yeah. And it was an office building, so they had like a break-in or something, and so they wanted to develop a work plan on, just how to be safe in the parking lot in the office building itself. So it really wasn't a set of tasks. It wasn't to-do items. It was just a bunch of stuff that in general was good to know and think about. So what they did is they left the task section blank, so they didn't put any tasks, and they just added it all to the expectations. So at the top, it just read expectations, and there was a list of all the expectations. So if you have anything like that you're struggling because there isn't an action to it, it's just a set of things people need to know, then you can just put it all in the expectations section. So this toolbar above here, let's go over these icons. This is a convert to checklist icon. So when you have a work plan, you can click this icon, say OK, and then what TouchStone will do is it takes the work plan and turns the tasks into a checklist. So these are all the tasks of this work plan, and it's been made into a checklist down here. These are independent of each other at the point that you create it. So the minute I convert this into a checklist, now these are independent of each other. If I go back and change this work plan, it's not going to change the checklist. So if I change the checklist, it's not going to change the work plan. If I delete the checklist, it will not delete the work plan, and vice versa. So this icon allows you to build checklists out of work plans. And we're going to talk more about the checklist here in a second, but I'm going to go through just the rest of these icons here. This icon will allow you to take a tool, a process tool, any one of these, out of a process and move it into another process. So you can use this tool when, let's say you want to combine two processes or you want to pull them apart. So let's say you decide to put a bunch of work plans inside your accounts payable process, but then you decide, oh, I really want to break those into two for whatever reason. Then you can take the work plans out of one and move them into the other. Or you put something in the wrong place. So anytime a tool is in the wrong place, you choose this icon. Whatever tool is behind me here is what I'm going to move. Hit the drop down. Now I'm looking at the 4 functions list. So go to the sub-function that the process I want to move this into is in. And now I'm seeing a list of all the processes in the admin sub-function. And I choose the process that I want to move this into, and then I hit save. And it's going to take this work plan out of this process and move it into that other. So now you see it's gone from here. And if I was to go look at that process I moved it into, it would be there. Sometimes people do this and then go, oh, I can't find it. I don't know where I moved it to. It disappeared. Somebody actually said that one time. It just disappeared. Well, it didn't disappear. It's in that other process. So if you ever do that, then just go to this search and search for it, and you'll see where it is. Let's get back. This icon is all of our export features. So you're going to see this icon all throughout TouchStone. You can print directly to your printer, anything inside of TouchStone. You can export it to Word. So what happens is your computer will launch Word, and then it exports the work plan or whatever you want to write to Word. You can also send it to a PDF, which has a little more polished look than Word. So if you don't want it to be changed, you just want like a PDF version of the document, then you can print it to a PDF or you can email it. The black X here is delete. So I'm going to go to this work plan. If I hit this black X, I'm going to have one chance to change my mind here. And if I say OK, then that tool is gone. And like it's gone, forever gone. So be sure you know what you're deleting. Only administrators can delete. So if you have other employees set up in your system as users and they're not administrators, then they won't be able to delete anything. That's only a pain when they've created something. They're a create user and they've created something and then they go to try to delete it and they can't. Then an administrator needs to go in and delete it. We do that on purpose because we want to be really careful about, and you need to be careful about who you allow to delete things. Now, if you have a huge emergency and somebody has accidentally deleted something that took you a lot of time and is really important, you can call us and we have a recovery mechanism. We don't advertise that all that often, but if you do have like an extreme emergency, like one time there was a client who fired an employee and then forgot to change the password to TouchStone, and the person was totally pissed off and went in and started deleting everything. They had made him an administrator, and it was a huge mistake, but that's what happened. So we were able to restore the account, but just be careful about who you make an administrator, and if you do have an employee who leaves, then change their password right away, just like you would with your other systems. This toolbar also has these little help features. This is something that's new. It was in our last release. We're just kind of testing it in the process tools page. People are liking it, so you're going to see it all throughout TouchStone in other places eventually. But it just kind of tells you the 1, 2, 3, 4s of what these tools are and what they do. And you'll see these, anytime you want to know what something does, it just kind of gives you a quick idea of what happens with that function. So let's talk about checklists for a minute, and then I'm going to get on to the system of the week. So checklists are for quality control. That's their main purpose. They're for verification. They're for management purposes. So as a manager, a checklist is a great tool for me because I know that the employee has done what I've asked them to do. So if the process has that need, then a checklist is a great idea. If the manager needs to know that these steps have been done, if the process or the checklist is something that is complicated and there's a lot of steps to it, and the employee needs to be able to know what they did and what they didn't do, and go back and verify that, then the checklist is a good tool. If it's critical tasks that if they don't happen can cause big problems other places, then a checklist is a great idea. If there's a set of information that needs to be finished by one department or person before it goes to another who then has to do things, it's a big bottleneck in most companies, because if all that information isn't there, then whoever receives it's got to go back to that original person and say, hey, where is it? And then it causes this conflict. It's typical between sales and operations, and it's typical between operations and finance in any company. So if there are issues like that, that before the salespeople can pass off the new customer to operations and before it can go to finance to be billed, there's a series of things that need to occur, then a checklist is good for that. So build a checklist if the process has any of these needs. You can take a work plan and turn it into a checklist like I did here. Or you can build a checklist independently of a work plan, and it's the same idea. You just click the checklist title, you put in the checklist name, put in the purpose of it. Why is it here? This objective in the checklist instance is a good thing to use and think about, because employees sometimes don't want to fill the checklist out. It's like, this takes too much time. Why do I have to do the checklist? It's in my way. No one's ever looking at it anyway, all of these things. So put in the objective why it's important. This checklist must be filled out, otherwise finance is unable to bill for the sale, or build some explanation for it. Then we hit create, and then you go add checklist item. You've got the title. So this goes next to the box, and it's bolded in black. And then I've got room for a further description right here. So this is more details if I want to put that. So that's what it looks like. Then add checklist item again, and then you build the next box. So you can use this details field to put in whatever extra information you want to say about the checklist item. But one thing to consider is the checklist is just verification. I just go through and say, did this, did that, did the next. It's not really meant to fully explain to me how to do it. That's in the work plan, or should be. If you build checklists and they've got like tons of details in them, they're super long, then it's just overwhelming. The checklist really is just verification. It doesn't need to have all that information in it. That is in the work plan. So use this details field sparingly. In fact, when I usually convert work plans to checklists, let's look at this one. I might even go in and edit them down a little bit, like take out all of this and just have this categorized. So if the person needs to know more about how to do this task, they can go back and look in the work plan. But here, they're just checking it off as they do it. Now, one huge, just important rule about checklists. If you're going to have a checklist, then somebody must be reviewing those checklists. There needs to be a manager, someone in charge, looking at the checklists all the time. You can't require an employee to fill out a checklist and then never look at them and just kind of go about your day and never look at them, because they're going to stop doing them. There's no point to it. So you want to have a method in which you just glance through the checklist and make sure they're there. If there's a problem or there's an issue, go back to the checklist and figure out what didn't happen or what happened. Call the employee out if they've checked something off and actually haven't done it. Call the employee out if they haven't filled out their checklist for the day. If you don't do that, then over time they're just going to stop doing them, and it's going to feel like it's busy work of no importance. So the manager has to manage with the checklist. So it has to be a situation where it's useful enough that the manager would go and review it and make sure it's being done. In the control panel here on the home screen, this is a great place to be using checklists, because I can have all my employees here filling out checklists, and then I can go run a report and say, you know, give me all the checklists that Sam did today. And I could look at those in one glance, make sure they're all there, and then move on to the next day or the next week. So it's at 3 or 4 clicks, and you see all the checklists, and they're there. You're verifying that they were done. Now, if there's ever a problem or a purpose for the checklist to quantify them or to use them to research any other type of information, well, then you can drill into exactly to the checklist you're looking at. But that simple act of just making sure that they're done is really important. There's another kind of more advanced way you can use checklists, and that's to create something like this, like a to-do checklist. So here I've got a checklist, the daily to-do sales checklist. And what this checklist is a list of hyperlinked processes. So this is everything that I want a salesperson to be doing from 8 a.m. all the way through until 5. And if they want to see how to do the selling warm leads, or if they wanted to see how to do sales follow-up, or if they want to see how they complete their contracts for the day, or they want to see how to generate referrals, they can click these links and see those processes. So all this becomes is kind of just like a quality control checklist or a verification checklist, a way to keep them on track. So you can build these independent checklists inside of TouchStone, link them to people's job descriptions, and all they are is just a hyperlinked list of processes that they have to do and run. Okay, so we are going to cover the rest of the process tools next week. I'm going to talk about scripts, uploaded files, forms, all these other tools, and kind of discuss how they're used and what they're used for. One of the biggest things that I see when I'm reviewing work plans for people is that there's not enough detail. So make that your #1 consideration when you're documenting and when also you're reviewing, if you're reviewing work plans for employees. Think about, is there enough detail here to actually accomplish what we're looking for, which is allowing a new employee to come on board, and you can use that work plan to train them in how to do the work. And there's enough detail in it where it explains exactly what you want them to do and how you want them to do it. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the employee's minimum qualifications. So here in a hiring, oh, this is hiring admin. Yeah, here in the hiring process, sometimes you can have like a form. I'm in the wrong one. You can have a form which explains the minimum qualifications of each position. So here's an example of that. So here's a form inside of a recruiting process where it shows these are the minimum qualifications for a salesperson. So if I hire this salesperson and they have a basic college degree, a 2-year degree, there isn't a whole lot listed in this example, but the idea would be they have 2 years of sales experience, they know Microsoft products, so you make a list of what these minimum qualifications are. Your work plans and processes need to fully train the position from that point forward to do that work. So for example, if I'm demanding before I even hire this person that they know how to use Excel, then in my processes, I don't need to explain how to open an Excel spreadsheet and how to put a cell note in and I don't need to do that. Like they already know how to do that, and I should test them before I even hire them to make sure that they do. An even bigger example is if you're a professional services company and let's say it's a doctor's office or a chiropractor's office. Well, your processes don't need to train someone how to be a doctor or how to be a chiropractor. That's the minimum qualifications. That's the skill set you're hiring and paying for. But what your processes do have to do is explain how you do it, how your business does it, the quality in which they do it. Anything else that isn't a part of their professional education, explaining and documenting what to do. So think about that idea. Does this have enough detail? If you're going to go through the effort of documenting, you really want the result of that, then really consider, do you have enough detail? So the system of the week is employee onboarding. So onboarding is the simple act of, once you've hired an employee, how do you introduce them to your company and start their training? So this is a new process in the library. This process has got different examples, different ideas. It's got a lot in it on how to do effective employee onboarding. If you look at this and you're like, God, how do I use this? It seems overwhelming. Give us a call, because we can sit with you, in about probably less than a half an hour and kind of customize it for you and show you how to use it. But these library processes sometimes have like different examples and different ways of doing it, so you can kind of pick and choose and customize it and make it your own. Onboarding employees well is just an essential efficiency for your business. These are just a few statistics, but there are a lot of statistics on the internet about and studies, educational studies on businesses around what it costs to hire an employee and then have them quit. So these are just some statistics on why they leave and when they leave on average. But down here at the bottom is the best one. The cost of losing an employee in the first year is 1.5 to 3 times their annual salary. It's enormous, right? That's huge. It's huge. And it's this hidden expense that we don't see. It kind of just flows out of the bucket, and you don't see it. So having an effective recruiting and hiring process where you know you're getting the right people on your bus, and then bringing them into the company in an effective way, where they feel socialized, where everything's set and ready to go. Like you're putting your best foot forward and saying, my company is organized. This is how we bring you on into your position. So here there's a work plan for preparing for the new employee to come. So basic things like, call them and confirm their time, make sure that you have all their paperwork, send an email out to other people in the office that this new employee is coming, make sure they get on the calendar for your regular meetings if they exist, do their HR training, their new employee training, and there's a process for this in the library as well. Arrange for them to have a phone, all of these things set up before they come so they kind of feel welcome. Here, we're ready for you. First day training, so make sure they have their new employee orientation and all of their human resource and paperwork has been set up and ready to go. Talk to them about their job description, show them TouchStone if you've got it that far along. Explain to them their duties, explain to them that you're going to be using the job description to train them and that each of the processes is the how-tos of that work. Explain to them how the company is organized, show them your organization chart, talk to them about your vision, introduce them to other employees, take them out to lunch that day. Basically get them going with their initial training, which this onboarding process kind of shows how to bring them onto the company, but then really the heart of it is the training of their processes on their job description. Then the first 30 days, so things that you want to accomplish in the first 30 days with them. Continue to have meetings with them, elicit feedback, answer questions they have, make specific time to do that, continue their job description training, introduce them to higher level people, make sure that they've had their human resource training, get feedback on how that went, take them out to lunch. 60 days. So some people like 60 days for this and some like 90 days, but this is like the end of the probationary period. So have a conversation about what their experience has been like to date, the good and the bad. Be open to hearing what it's been like. Be open to hearing what the training, the job description training has been like. Conduct a 30-day performance review. There's a process in TouchStone for this as well. Celebrate their accomplishments, review their goals, have their job description training be complete by then or ongoing, depending on the position. When I say the job description training, I mean, oh, this link's broken. I mean all of their processes on their job description. So here you would go through and train them on one process tool at a time. Read it over with them. Have them read it back to you. Have them memorize and study it. Have them observe another person doing it. Give them a lecture on it. Test their understanding of the process. Ask them questions about it. Have them demonstrate their ability. So this is the training of their processes. So take a look at this onboarding process and see, how it might be useful for you. There's a whole another, there's checklists in here. So we just took the work plans and converted them to checklists, but this is a nice thing to do, especially if you have a manager doing this and you as the owner or you as that person's manager want to make sure that the new employees have been trained. You go through and check off all these processes as they do them, save them as the employee's name. There's a little policy down here for this. I heard this super funny joke about training. So the CFO says to the CEO, what happens when we spend all this time training employees and then they quit? And the CEO says, yeah, but what if we don't and they stay? I heard that a couple days ago. I was just cracking up because it's so true, isn't it? You dread kind of spending the money and time it takes to thoroughly train people because you don't want them to leave. But then if you don't train them, what is that costing you? So this simple onboarding process doesn't take a whole lot of time, but it really just helps kind of put your best foot forward for the employee. So just in the 2 minutes we have left, if you're using this in the control panel, or you can, if I go to my control panel, I can go to new employee onboarding right here. And now I'm seeing it in the control panel view. So I could go to this preparing for the new employee checklist, and I could save this as the person's name that I'm onboarding. I go in and check off these boxes, as I do it. I can put in notes here about things that happen, and then I save it. So it saves it back to TouchStone. So I can go and access it here in this completed folder anytime I want to, or I can go back and finish it if I haven't finished it yet. But more importantly, my manager, if they want to make sure that all the new employees have been onboarded correctly, they can go here and run a report and search for, they're looking for a particular employee, and hit Run Report, and then they can see a list. So here's his performance evaluation, here's his new onboarding, here's his salesperson training, here's the one-on-one meetings that have been happening. So this is nice for management purposes because I can see as the manager that all my stuff is here and that I've done everything I need to do with this employee. But it's also nice for, upper level positions as well to be able to verify. So if the president up here wants to know if everyone within this department has been onboarded correctly, they just run a report and they can see it. Or even if this person here wants to make sure that this person has done their onboarding of this person, then same idea. So next week we are going to continue our conversation on documenting a process. So we're going to finish up with scripts, upload files, forms, and all the rest, and then we'll go on from there. So thanks for coming, everybody. Bye-bye.